Okay, so here's a quote. And I'm going to tell you right up front, this quote comes directly from the person who came here today to share with us, Phil Sorentino. This is his quote. Wherever you are in life, someone has had it worse and made it, and someone has had it better and blown it. And I guarantee you that's going to be part of his story and what he gets to share with us today. He's going to talk about the challenges and how we turn those into our gifts and how we can really tap into fun, the fun of free will. So is your family looking for fun? Well, if you are, then stick around because this is your invitation. Don't miss it. My name is Cheryl Bassett. I'm founder of Unstoppable Connections, international bestseller, and creator of the award-winning Unstoppable Family Meeting Toolkit. I am also the host of this show, Kitchen Table Conversations, as part of the Edge Network. Families do get to tap into my 4 gifts, and these 4 gifts have everything to do with how we create an unshakable, unbreakable foundation with our families. So if you'd like to learn about how you can connect your family in a more deeper, passionate way, then you can reach out to my website at unstoppableconnections.com. And if you would like to be on the show, or if you have an idea for the show, you can also reach me at kitchentableconversations.com. Now, I like to set an intention for the show. I do this for every show, and I do it because I want to ground it in this expectation of how we come here to celebrate. This show does feature the fun stuff, the tough stuff, and everything in between. It's all designed to ignite conversations, to strengthen your family, and to create a positive ripple out into the world. So what we do is we take one of the gifts, one of those 4 gifts I mentioned, and it is the gift of love. And we unwrap the gift of love by choosing to celebrate ourselves and others. So it's with that celebration, that heart, that open mind that we come here today to celebrate Phil as he shares with us his talents, his expertise, his heart, and his energy. So with that, before I bring him on, you're going to love him. He's great. I want to just give you a little bit about his background. And so Phil Sorentino is a communicator of action steps on attitude, selling, customer loyalty, and business and financial results. Phil and his wife, Susan, who I know also love both of them, co-founded Humor Consultants in 1981. And the promise of Humor Consultants is they're going to assist you in the enjoyment of everything. Humor Consultants helps organizations increase their bottom line, increase sales, and employee customer loyalty by making work fun. A few of its clients are IBM, Wendy's, Nationwide Insurance, and the Ohio State University football team. Go Bucks, even though they're not playing. Phil is a past president of the Columbus Entrepreneurial Network, a member of the National Speakers Association, and a past president of its Ohio chapter. Phil was the dean of the Professional Speakers Academy for the Florida Speakers Association, and he's earned this distinction, which only 700 others have in the country, which is as a certified speaking professional. So without any further belaboring of this, I want to bring him on because there's Phil. Hi, Phil. It's great to have you. Great to have you here. Yeah, so, I know you speak to companies, and I'm really excited because a lot of the ideas that I share, even around the 4 gifts, came from things I learned in workshops while I was in the company setting. And I feel like there's so many things we can take from our work life experience and actually translate it into what happens at the kitchen table. So I'm excited to have you here. But tell us, for the audience, like, obviously everybody sort of lands in their passion. They do what they do because of their journey in life. Tell us about your journey and how it is that you got to do what you do with Humor Consultants.
Well, it was a dark and stormy night. The shot rang out. A baby cried. No. I didn't become Italian until I was 20 days old. I was adopted. That's when I became Italian. That's when I made my first sale. It was 20 days. It was all eye contact and body language. Although my dear Sicilian mother said she'd pick the one next to me and they gave her the wrong baby. Buyer's remorse. I get a call about 20 years ago. Is this Phil Sorentino? Yes. Were you born on August 1st, 1951? Yes. We're with Reunite. We put adopted families together. You have a sister that wants to talk to you. Are you interested? I said, well, Cheers is starting. Can I call you back? I found out I'm one of 7 kids on my biological mother's side. I'm her 3rd by the time she was 18 by 3 different guys.
Oh.
Mother. Well, now I know where I get my sex drive. I get my biological mom on the phone for the first time in my life. I said, Mom, I've always teased I was conceived in the back seat of a Buick. She says, I really don't remember what kind of car it was, but it was the back seat. My adopted sister died when I was 2. My adopted father died when I was 6. My adopted mother got into alcohol and suicide attempts when I was 9. So I have no abandonment issues, wink, wink. I'm ADD and dyslexic, so the nuns and I got along swimmingly well. I had a nun in the 4th grade whack me in the back of the head with a music book. I turned around, she said, that's for everything I've never caught you doing. So I turned around and said, well, you better hit me again. And so she hit me another time. Started to work when I was 11. Cleaned toilets for 80 cents an hour when I was 14. And I was 5'1" when I graduated from high school. I went out for football, but they already had one. But the past is the past is the past. There comes a time in every one of our lives where we have to say to ourselves, I'm going to stop letting my past ruin my future and rob me of my present. As you quoted me, wherever you are in life, somebody's had it worse and made it, and somebody's had it better and blown it. So what's important now? That's part of the message.
Yeah, and it's such an important message. And, you know, it's true. And honestly, I look at my childhood, which was, you know, I mean, I'm not going to trade mine for yours, but it was a little, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not, but it was a little chaotic and crazy, a little bat nut crazy at times. But it made me really strong. And I do view it as a gift. And it is why I do what I do, right? Because I wanted a different relationship with my kids.
Sure.
You know, so I think all of that.
And you chose that manifestation.
Yeah. So it's exciting to see that. So I think you're right. There has to come a point where you go, wow, that's in the past. And am I going to let the past completely? What was your quote again? The past is in the past.
The past is the past is the past.
Yeah.
Know, the past resides in your memory. The future resides in your imagination. All we have is the now. All life is a series of nows. It's one now after the other. Like you should never say to yourself or anybody else, you shouldn't feel that way. Your feelings, that's the thermometer of your soul. And denying your feelings is like putting a sticker over the gas gauge of your automobile and saying to yourself, I'm not going to pay any attention to that information, and see how far that gets you.
Yeah.
Esther and Jerry Hicks has what they call the emotional guidance scale, which is 22 points. And their message is, where are you on that emotional guidance scale? Like, pick a number between 1 and 22.
Pick 11.
Let me see here. 11 is overwhelmment. 12 is disappointment. And 10 is frustration, irritation, and impatience. So you can go from impatience to overwhelmment to disappointment. Let's pick on the positive. 4 is positive expectations and belief. 3 is enthusiasm. And 5 is optimism. Let's put 22. Fear, grief, depression, powerlessness, and victimhood. And ladies and gentlemen, I've been there. Let's pick 1. Joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, love, and appreciation. And ladies and gentlemen, I've been there too. So what part of the message is where you feel is how you feel. And saying you shouldn't feel it, that's where you are. So you always admit to where you are. That's what's called being present. Next, think of a clock. So at 12 o'clock, you have your feelings. At 2 o'clock, you have what do you think about your feelings. Then at 4 o'clock, what are you going to be based on what you think? Eckhart Tolle, be here now. Then at 6 o'clock, what are you going to do based on what you feel, think, be, do? And then at 10 o'clock, have. Well, no, at 8 o'clock, have. And then at 10 o'clock, give. So it's be, feel. What do you feel? What do you think about what you feel? What are you going to be or believe? And a belief is a thought you just keep thinking. And based on your belief, what are you going to do? Because faith without works is dead. And then what will you have based on that? And then what you have, what are you going to give? Because you can't give what you don't have.
Right.
So you decide on where you are, and then you decide where you want to go from there.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I used to always say to my boys, and sometimes I have to say it to myself as a reminder, but you're never wrong for how you feel. It's just how you feel.
Never. It's how you feel. Exactly. And wouldn't the world be a better place if we just learned that lesson?
Right. Right. Yeah, it's not really an issue of right or wrong. It's just where you are. And you can choose then if you want to elevate, get into a different place, take, or whatever, but it's not wrong, right?
Right.
So, yeah, no, that's great. So I know that you go in these companies and you speak and you share all these things. And I know you have so many beautiful ways to kind of do these analogies. So I'm just thinking a conversation that a family could have right now is really literally about this, right? Like yesterday I might have been upset about something, but today's a different day and we're in the now, and we can learn from it, but we don't have to keep living in it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, where do we get our definition for our sense of humor? We got it from my son's kindergarten teacher. Chad was in kindergarten, and yes, I have a Chad. He's not a hanging Chad. He's not a dimpled Chad. He's not a ripped Chad. He's not a pregnant Chad. He's Baghdad Chad.
Baghdad Chad. I love that. Okay.
Done 2 tours of Iraq. Was a drill sergeant for 2 years. Was in charge of the SWAT team at Fort Knox, and now he's sergeant first class at Fort Leavenworth. I think it's kind of ironic that the humor consultants created a drill sergeant.
Yeah.
But Chad was in kindergarten. They were talking about your 5 senses. So Chad raised his hand. He said, "What about your 6th sense?" The teacher said, "Your 6th sense?" And Chad said, "Yeah, your ability to read other people's minds." In the parent-teacher conference, I went, "Yes!" A tear formed in my eye. I turned to Susan. I said, "He can't clean his room, but he's got this one right." By the way, how many know the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill?
Yep.
There's a whole chapter in this book called Your 6th Sense, written in 1936.
Yeah.
And by the way, she was a great teacher. She said, "Chad, what about your 7th sense?" And Chad said, "Your 7th sense." And the teacher said, "Yeah, your sense of humor."
And so that's where it comes from, your 7th sense. I love it. Yeah.
So if you can agree that your sense of humor is your sense of perspective, then it's the combination, it's the distillation, it's a result of all the information that we process through our other 6 senses. So it's your attitude. So do you have a loving humor? Do you have a hateful humor? Do you have an encouraging humor? Do you have a discouraging humor? Do you have a forgiving humor? Do you have a revengeful humor? You choose the humor you bring to the world. So what we really teach is the power, the challenge, and if you want it to be the fun of free will.
Yeah, the fun of free will. I saw that in your notes and I thought, well, that's a cool way of looking at it, the fun of free will. Because we do get to choose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know there's a quote that I like is, but every day you get up and you actually do get to choose, like which energy are you going to be and how are you going to spend? Are you going to be in the solution or are you going to be in the problem, right? And there's a quote that says you can never solve a problem in the energy of the problem. You can only solve it in the energy of the solution.
Right, exactly.
Right? Yeah. Right. And I think that's just so beautiful. So I think when we get up, we can certainly focus on the problems. There's plenty of them. They're out there. And we can give more energy to it and we can feed it. And the very thing that we don't want to have happen, we can perpetuate and give more strength to. Or we can choose to focus on the things that we do want in our life, right? And step into the energy of the solutions around it and be a part of that energy. So
and you can be responsible for the energy that you create. I've got 5 kids and 6 grandkids. My 2 kids are from a previous marriage. And I had my oldest daughter call me up one day and said, "Dad, I heard you said something negative about Danny." Danny is her stepfather. I said, "Tommy, let me ask you a few questions. Have you ever heard me say anything negative about Danny?" She thought for a while and she says, "No, Dad, you never have." I said, "Question number 2, have you ever heard me say anything negative about your mother?" And she thought for a while. She says, "No, Dad, you never have." I said, "Have you ever heard me say anything negative about anybody?" And she went, "No, Dad, you never have." I said, "Then what do you think the chances are that I said something negative about Danny?" She went, "You're right." And we ended our conversation.
Right. Yeah. And because you choose that and because we can always find the things we want to focus on people that are positive, right? Yeah. We can always see the things that aren't good.
Sure.
They're there. It's out there, right? We were talking about this the other day about how people are so good at fighting for their limitations and fighting for like all this negative that's going on. And they keep saying, "Oh yeah, but it's real." Well, we can keep feeding that, or we can start looking at because I think right now, more than ever, which is why our lives have shifted so much, but we're in a transition. And, in that transition, there's a lot of stuff that's not good. In that transition, there's a lot of stuff that's beautiful.
Well, it's tough to stay positive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you would think someone like myself who's been standing up in front of audiences since he was 22 years old, giving the message that happiness is your choice. You'd think I'd have gotten it by now, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, and you do most of the time. I just think it's like
I struggle every day.
Do you not think we teach what we need to learn, though?
Oh, definitely. I mean, every day. And there's nobody on the planet that's heard this stuff as much as me, because every time I give a speech, I got to listen to it. So I said, there's got to be a reason why it's tough to stay positive. And I did some research, and there actually is. It's called the reticular activating system. Have you heard of it?
Yep.
It's about the size of a $50. For those of us who are old enough to remember what a $50 is, it resides in the back of your skull. It's part of your reptilian brain, and it forces you to focus on what has changed, what is different, and what we need to survive. When you put a child on the kitchen floor, what does the child find? Dirt, cat food, Cheerios. The child will look at the pattern of the floor, and then the child's focus, the child's attention, the child's self-motivation goes towards what doesn't fit the problem. Try it right now. Just look to your floor right now where you are. Gerald, look to your floor.
Yep.
See, you saw the little spot, didn't you?
No, my floor is so clean. No, I'm kidding. Yes, I can see a lot of spots. Okay. Well, I'm kidding.
Or how about this? How about this? You get a new car, you get a ding on the car. For the next 2 weeks, what do you look at?
That ding.
The ding. Can you stop yourself? No. If it's on the passenger side, you'll walk around. You'll call strangers out of the parking lot to ruminate with you over your ding. I just got this car 2 weeks ago. I think all new cars should come pre-jinged as a service from the dealer. Or here, you get an outfit, you get a little spot on your outfit. Ooh, I can't wear this outfit. It's got a spot. You'll hold it in the light so you can see it better. Do you carry a Tide stick in your purse?
No, I don't. I'm not that organized, but yeah.
But some people do.
Some people do.
There's always somebody in the audience. I said, who has a Tide stick in their purse? There's always somebody. I said,
there's always, yeah.
It's called the reticular activating system. And when we were hunter-gatherers, and we were hunter-gatherers a lot longer than we were farmers, our job was to look at the woods. If the woods would change, it could be food or we could be food. So we are programmed to focus on what has changed, what is different, what do we need to survive. So you must force yourself on a regular basis to override your humanness and count your blessings.
Right.
If you don't have your health, does anything else matter?
Mm-mm.
If the people we love don't have their health, does anything else matter?
No.
If you've lost hope or faith, does anything else matter? There's a French philosopher who said, we're not human beings that have spiritual experiences. He says we're spiritual beings, and we're just currently having a human experience. So part of being manifested onto the physical plane at this particular time in the time continuum is we need to learn to override our humanness, which our spirituality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's so true about, like if I have 10 things I need to do and I get 9 of them done, I'll focus on the one thing I didn't get done. You know what I mean? It's like, right. Exactly.
Duh.
Yeah.
Or how about this? How about this? My adopted father died when I was 6, 3 days after Christmas. So, you had Christmas, my dad dying, New Year's, and finally we're back to school. So I raise my hand, I stand up, I say, God knows everything's going to happen. And the nun said, yes, he does. I said, then how do we have free will? And the nun said, sit down and be quiet. And I thought, you can't answer this question? This is kind of the question, and you can't answer that? I said, this is not going to work out over the long run when you can't even answer this question. But in the book's Conversations with God, book 3, he answers it. But he uses technology as a metaphor, so I couldn't have used it back then. But when you play a video game, how does the character on the screen know how to move? Well, the answer is programming. Right. All the potential moves for every character in every video game is programmed into the game. But you move the joystick. When God gave you your life, all of your potential moves are programmed into your life. But you move the joystick. And since God created the game, God's always going to win. So do you want to play on the team of love and forgiveness and compassion and take care of the poor and the sick and the people in prison? Or do you want to play on the team of fear and pride and envy and deceit and selfishness? Which team do you want to play on?
Right. Yeah, you know, there's this thing, and I know you've seen this before, with the little boy that looks up at his father, the Indian chief father, and it's reminding me of that. And he says, what do you think of the world today? And his father says, well, I feel like there's two wolves tearing at my heart, and one is filled with hatred and bitterness and jealousy, and the other one's filled with love and peace and hope and all the, and beauty. And the little boy goes, well, which one will win? And he says, the one I choose to feed.
Yeah.
And and it's really about that choice, right, that we get to make of where we want to put our time and our energy and our focus. So
that reminds me too, Wayne Dyer. By the way, I have a picture of me with Art Linkletter, and Wayne Dyer together, the three of us.
Oh wow! Okay.
How cool is that? I got a great
cool.
Art Linkletter story for you too. If I'll tell you later. But Wayne Dyer talks about when you put pressure on an orange, what do you get? Orange juice.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make any difference what kind of pressure? Hit it with a hammer, run over with a car, put it in a juicer. The only thing you're going to get outside of that orange is what's inside of it. And Wayne Dyer says that's the same thing about us. When the pressure's on us, and it doesn't make any difference what kind of pressure, financial pressure, relationship pressure, health pressure, what comes out of you is what's inside of you. So when the pressure's on, if love and forgiveness and compassion come out of you, then that's what's inside of you. But when the pressure's on, if fear and envy and jealousy and despair come out of you, then that's what's inside of you. Mm-hmm. And his point is if you don't like what's coming out, you have the freedom to start putting something different in.
Right.
Same kind of concept.
Same exact concept. Yeah. And I like that analogy. That's a good one.
But I got a great Linkletter story real quick.
Okay, go for it.
Linkletter, and he told me this personally, because we were both adopted. What I would do is when I was growing up in Columbus, Ohio, or when I was in my 20s, and I heard speakers were coming to town, I would call the organization, say, by the way, who's picking up Norman Vincent Peale? Who's picking up Zig Ziglar? Who's picking up Paul Harvey? Who's picking up Art Linkletter? They go, well, we have nobody. I go, would you mind if I picked him up to the airport? You would do that? Yeah. How much would you charge us? Oh, I'll do it for free. So I picked up all those guys. So Linkletter and I are talking. He says, Sorentino, I got a good story for you. When Disney was done with Disneyland, he was out of money. He didn't have any money, but he needed a spokesperson. And if you know old enough, for those of us on the phone, on the show that's old enough, Linkletter was like the Oprah of our generation. I mean, he had a radio show, he had a TV show, he had this, he had that. So Disney goes to Linkletter and says, I can't pay you any money, but here's what I can give you. I can let you own the concessions of the park for all cameras and film.
So that's where the show came from. Ah, nice.
So Linkletter goes to Kodak and says, now I own the concessions of the park at Disneyland. Would you like to be my supplier? So for years and years and years, if you bought camera and film at Disneyland, Linkletter got us. Isn't that a cool story?
So yeah, it's a very cool story. It was what, Smile? You're on Candid Camera. Was that the?
Yeah, that was part of it. No, that was it was Kids Say the Darndest Things.
Kids Say the Darndest Things. Yeah.
His was House Party. Yeah. He had a talk show for adults during the day called House Party. Then he had a show that Kids Say the Darndest Things in the evening, and then he was on the radio.
Yeah. But those would be some fun clips to pull. I probably love that, just because kids do say the darndest things. For sure. We were just talking about that this morning. My one time we're sitting at the table and my kids were really young, and David says, Mom, where does butter come from? And Brian goes, duh, a knife. And I was like, well, there's a moment. Anyway.
Well, there's a saying. Glenn Turner said this: I'd like to become the man my father never was, so that my son can become the man that I never will be.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Each generation.
That's the goal.
Yeah, that's the goal. So yeah, that's beautiful. So, well, I know you had talked about on here too about enjoy a servant's attitude. And I know that was one of the things that you were going to touch on today. And I think that's an important one too. So what do you share around the servant attitude?
Well, you can have all the quality in the world. You can have all the service in the world. But if you deliver it in a style that doesn't make people feel good, you're going to lose. But you can drop a little bit on quality. You can drop a little bit on service. But you deliver it in a style that people trust you, you can win. So style is as important as substance. So we've been placed here to be as servants, to create loyalty, to help each other out. Because I believe the way the universe is set up, you cannot give yourself. So by being a servant, you're there to help. And for those of us who grew up in Central Ohio, we knew a company that was just great in creating customer loyalty was F&R Lazarus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could walk into Lazarus that has a JCPenney label on it, tell the clerk, tell the associate that this is how much you paid for it, and they would give you the money back, no questions asked. See, I believe Central Ohio, we are blessed because we had the Mr. Lazarus, the Mr. McConnells, Cranes from Crane Plastic, Mr. Wexner, Dave Thomas from Wendy's. We've had so many business leaders that really believed in you take care of your employees and you take care of your customers and your business will take care of themselves. That's not true all over this country. I believe we've been blessed in Central Ohio to have that kind of leadership over all these years.
Yeah, and I'm sure they have it everywhere. You're right. I feel like there was an overabundance of that thoughtfulness and that integrity, I think, is what you're talking about. And
sure.
But if I were a kid and I'm trying to figure out, so like, and I don't know the answer to this, but like if I'm a kid and I'm trying to understand what it means to have sort of a servant attitude or a servant heart, how would you explain that to, a 10-year-old?
Think less of yourself and think more of other people. See, my purpose in life is find a need and fill it. My name is Phil. It's through the power of praise, action, humor, money, and or trade by being loving, forgiving, and grateful to myself and others. That's why this soul manifested itself on the physical plane at this particular time in the time continuum. Find a need and fill it through the power of praise, action, humor, money, and or trade by being loving, forgiving, and grateful to myself and others. So as long as I'm fulfilling that purpose, whether it's taking out the garbage or helping a company be more successful, I'm fulfilling my purpose no matter which of those tasks I'm doing.
Yeah.
So if you can really learn to be a servant, just like Christ was a servant. Christ came here to give up his life and live his life in a way that he was an example for us. That say, if you live your life that way, you will defeat darkness. You will defeat evil. Evil is live spelled backwards. The devil is live spelled backwards. Race car is race car spelled backwards.
It's funny. My husband pointed that one out, the race car.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, it's
cool.
Funny. Yeah, and it's funny. I was thinking about this because I know one time I was talking with a family and they had and this is a really simplistic example to what you're sharing, but just when again thinking about like a 10-year-old looking at this, but they had all the chores up on the refrigerator, right? And there was such a disconnect from these kids being excited about doing those chores, which I can understand. Like when you call it a chore, it sounds like a chore, right? But when I think if I were thinking about a 10-year-old having a servant heart, it's like, how do I get to be a part? So we switched the word chore and we actually turned it into it. How do I get to contribute to the team today?
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just that word change. So today, yes, taking out the trash it seems like maybe not a fun thing, but it's my contribution to our family team. And I think that could be a powerful way for a 10-year-old to kind of grab on. That's how you get to have a servant heart and recognize that you get to be a part of this team. And in honor of that, obviously you get to play whatever role that is. And it might be taking out the trash. It might be unloading the dishwasher. It doesn't really matter. The point is you're part of that servant heart that recognizes you're part of that team.
I want to be around people that have high self-esteem and low egos. I don't want to be around people that have high egos and low self-esteem, because people with high egos and low self-esteem, they make themselves feel good by making other people feel bad.
Right.
But people with high self-esteem and low egos, they make themselves feel good by making other people feel good, loved, cared.
Yeah.
See, first-rate people like to be around all kind of people, because we believe the same spirit that's in you is the same spirit that's in me. What I do to you, I do to me. Second-rate people like to be around third-rate people, because they go, I'm not as bad as they are. And they feel very uncomfortable being around first-rate people. And I think one of the challenges we have here today, we have some leaders in our nation that aren't first-rate people. But we can't do anything about that. We can only make sure that we're a first-rate person.
Exactly.
And if everybody decides that, and everybody behaves like that, and everybody gives out that, because you can't outgive yourself. The universe won't let you. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when you do something, there's that something that you did, you get to credit that, and then the opposite happens. You have to break through. That's like, to be successful, a lot of times you got to break through some challenges because you created that yin of that yang that you got to break through. But I think if everybody decides they're going to be more loving, forgiving, and grateful, and if everybody on this planet would start living their life based on those values, we could change what's happening right now in this country and in the world.
And I think that there is a shift towards that. At least that's what I choose to believe. So we are. It's amazing how fast this time goes. I love this conversation. It's so good to connect with you again, because I know we hadn't connected for a lot of years.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah, it's been really nice to have that connection again, and with you and Susan. So what we do when we close out the show is we offer a dot, and a dot is simply a drop of thought, which is really a pearl of wisdom. So I have one that I always share, but before I do and close it out officially, what is your drop of thought or your dot that you would like to leave with?
I have given this out since I was in my 20s when I was speaking. And I had a teacher call me up on the phone. He says, Sorentino, you're not going to believe what happened. I said, what? He says, you know that Celebrate You give out? I go, yeah. He said, I gave it to my teachers all at our school. This one teacher gave it to all their students. This one student was being abused. She broke through the abuse and got to college. When she went to college, instead of putting this in her dorm room, she put it outside her dorm room in the hall. She said one day there was a knock on the door, and she opened the door, and there was a young man there crying, tears streaming down his face. And she says, what's wrong? He said, I just read this Celebrate You, and I realized what a stupid thing that would have done to take my car and run it into a tree. I mean, think about that. Yeah. Think of the impact we can have on people's lives that we have no idea the impact we have on people's lives. It's called Celebrate You. You are worth celebrating. You are worth celebrating. You are unique. In all the world, there's only one you. There's only one person with your talents, with your experience, with your gifts. No one can take your place. Only one of you was created, unique in your own way. You have an immense potential to love, to care, to create, to grow, and to sacrifice if you believe in yourself. It doesn't matter your age or your color or whether your parents loved you or not. Maybe they wanted to love you, but they didn't know how. Let that go. That belongs to the past. You belong to the now. It doesn't matter what you've been, the wrong you've done, the mistakes you've made, the people you've hurt. You're forgiven. You're accepted. You're okay. Celebrate you. Begin now. Give yourself that new birth. Today, you're you. And that's all you ever need to be. You're temporary. You're here today. You're gone tomorrow. But today can be a new beginning, a new thing, a new life. You deserve that new life. It's given freely. That is the miracle of being. So celebrate the miracle and celebrate you.
Love it. Can you send that to me so I can post that up with the show stuff?
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great. Real quick before we go, I want to, do I have that right?
Yeah.
Humorconsultants.com.
Yeah, and if you go to the media section, you can see the picture of Art Linkletter, Wayne Dyer, and I together.
Yeah, because I'm thinking some people don't know who Art Linkletter is, and you should. So just go check it out.
Or who Wayne Dyer is.
Or who Wayne Dyer is. That's why he's passed as well, but he's not. He kind of died young, though. I was surprised. So humorconsultants.com, you can reach out to Phil. I'm going to post up. I'd love to put that Celebrate up. And I think that would be a beautiful thing for families to actually just sit at their kitchen table and just read that, right? Because we all deserve that second chance and to, be forgiven and to forgive ourselves. So, yeah, it's beautiful. Okay. So thank you so much for being here. I always do close out the show with my dot. It's really my heartbeat. But ripples don't flow in, they flow out. So if we really want to see change out in our world, it's going to start with us in our own homes, with our own families first. Thank you for being here. Sit down, love your family, give them a hug. Again, find that humor that you can bring into your life, because there can be a little bit of humor in everything. Thank you, Phil, for being here.
Thanks for having me. Love you.